Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Big Sky. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with the new case that Ginny and Bo have, while they're kind of also dealing with this whole Walter situation at the same time. This case involved a guy dying. I had never heard of the term smoke jumper before this episode. I mean, parachuting and all that was his thing, but I'm like, is that part of the smoke jumper thing of like, they parachute in when it's like a fire situation that needs to be under control or something? I wasn't 100% clear on that. Like I said, it was just something I'd never really heard of before. Because I never really know all the facets of how they go about attacking like fires that are kind of spreading. But either way, in this regard, this guy who died, his name is Brett. Brett actually has a connection to, I believe, someone else from his unit. Well, yeah, someone else from his unit. Frank, who was kind of like their boss. His son ended up dying, and it was an accident, but Brett was always blamed by Frank for his son's death. And so it's a situation of, well, now it seems like, well, maybe Frank has something to do with Brett's death. And this case kind of hits a little close to home for Bo, just because I think this episode in particular, this whole thing kind of brought up some of the stuff he kind of got away from in Texas. The thing is, Ginny knows about it because Carla told her like an episode or two ago, but Ginny hasn't told Bo that she knows. And the fact is, we even see Emily coming across some of the files, so I guess like obviously she doesn't know a lot about that. I wonder, does she know anything at all other than what she found? But the way Bo was going at Frank, it's like, oh, you blamed him, didn't you? And even Ginny was like, hey, you kind of going at him, kind of went at him pretty hard. And I'm wondering, is it because Bo's been on that other side of things? Like maybe his partner that died in Texas, maybe his family blamed Bo. Well, their family blamed Bo, and that, you know, and then, you know, a combination of probably self-guilt as well, blaming himself. Or maybe it's just his own frustrations of blaming himself. He was kind of taking it out on Frank because it's like, oh, you needed someone to blame, huh, for what happened, so you had to take it out on somebody. I don't know. I'm curious what was written, but I think that ended up being a key factor in this, and I think Ginny knew that as well, but she was also trying to give him his space without really, like, pushing that too much. The sad thing is, it turns out that Brett, as well as Frank's second in command, as well as even Frank's son, might have been part of some ring of basically thefts. Like they used the fires as an an attempt when people are like out of their house to rob them. And it turns out Brett had like a storage container with some of that like money and stuff in it. And they ended up working with Frank to get a confession. And Frank believes this guy, because he believed that, because the guy was kind of saying like, right, his second in command was basically like, right, I did us a favor by killing Brett. He wasn't a good person. Almost trying to pin Frank's son's death on him, but now it's like, no, you killed him because he, like, either he was a part of this, or at the very least he found out about it, or maybe he had a good conscience about, like, he didn't feel right about doing it anymore, so my son's death wasn't an accident. You killed my son. Now, whether it was him and Brett who did it, who knows? But he's the only one left holding the bag now, considering everything. But it seems like at the core of all of this, for Bo, at least a piece of this, it's like, right, Frank was willing to do anything for his son, which for him, it's like, he understands that, you know, him and Jenny can both understand that as parents, but I think for him, it's that situation of, like, everything that's going on recently, he feels like he's failing to be there for Emily. It's like, right, she needs me. The fact that she found a dead body and I couldn't do anything for her, like, I couldn't prevent her from being in that situation. He wants to protect her, and he just feels like, is that situation as a parent where you're just like, I can't, there's only so much you can do, but Jenny's trying to tell him, like, you don't have to worry about it. Like, Emily is strong because you and Carla raised her to be, so she's going to be okay. She can handle a lot more than you kind of think, because he just feels like he's failing as a parent in some shape or form. So I think a little bit of that, plus everything in Texas, I think it all kind of hit all at once with this particular case, so. But focusing on the Walter stuff really quickly, they are trying to push Walter to kind of confess to the murders. I mean, well, we know there's at least one of the murders involved in all of this that he's connected to, and that's Mark and Luke's. But obviously, Mark wasn't really. It's not murder. It's just, yeah, you let him die. You didn't ever get him any help. Luke, he straight up killed, but that's the only one. Obviously, Mary, it's like, well, that was Buck who did that. But the one murder he confessed to was Paige's, which is the weird thing. It's like, right, you confess to the one murder where there is no body. And obviously you could tell with the way he was looking at the picture. I mean, that doesn't mean anything, because I was about to say, like, he's looked at Paige's picture with, like, sentimentality, but I'm like, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. It could just be like, hey, he got obsessed with her, a little deranged, and could, like, the same, like, thing could be applicable with, like, in his mind, that's him being sentimental because he did care about her, and that's why. But the fact is, he did confess to the one murder where it's like, right, they found blood in the cabin, but it's like Paige's blood, but there's still no body. Then Cassie comes in to kind of question him, because it's like, right, about the dolls that was found, so it's like, right, we know for certain you're the one that moved Mark's body because it's the same doll, and it turns out. And Cassie also talking to Denise was like, yo, what about the whole heart thing? And he's on the bleeding heart case. It's like, well, he knows something to it because the hearts are carved into the foot. I think it's just because probably, like, at a young age, he saw them. I don't know if he necessarily associates them with Buck, because that might be something he saw Buck do, but he hasn't told his mom about it. But maybe it's just, I mean, he's been in those woods for so long that maybe he always saw those symbols and he just adopted it himself. Obviously, he has no direct correlation, because the person who does is Buck. Because we see Buck later on cut his finger and end up drawing the heart. So it's like, right, I figured as much. He's the bleeding heart killer. Once again, he's most likely a massive serial killer that's just been hiding, like, probably going dormant. That's probably what really made him kill Mary, just because it's like, oh, he's using the excuse, oh, I'm protecting Sonny, but it's like, it feels so good to kind of do it after so long. Like, even when he was drawing the heart again, he was like, oh, almost like a hello, old friend, it's been so long type of feel. So it's like, yeah, like, I think he's keeping it at bay, but it's like, I don't think you can just, that doesn't completely disappear. Now that he killed Mary, that might have brought a lot of that to the forefront. Either way, circling back to Walter. But Cassie was asking what the whole doll things that he makes, wood dolls, like, what they're about. They're about protection, because she's like, right, Mark fell, and it's like she's trying to gauge whether or not he had anything to do with that. Once again, he didn't. Mark did fall. I mean, granted, he kind of freaked Mark out. Mark fell backwards. But it's like, well, why did you move the body? She's like, did someone tell you to? And obviously he's not answering that, but it's like, yeah, he moved him simply because, well, that's what his mom wanted. So, because she didn't want to, the business to be there. Once again, she didn't do anything too sinister at first. I mean, granted, I was like, oh, I thought you'd be just a straight up, like, oh, you're a murderer. It's like, no, you just did some very not good, shady stuff. But then you've kind of gone even further, because, like, cool, well, your husband murdered murdered Mary, so that's kind of on him. But you're helping cover up that stuff. You the same thing with, like, hey, Paige disappeared. You covered that up to be like, oh, she went back home. So it's like, you've done a lot of covering up for your own family's best interest. Not just Cormac and Buck, but also Walter. Just because a lot of stuff has come to your doorstep because of Walter, but also, once again, there's a lot of circumstances outside of you that brought a lot of this to your doorstep as well. And I guess she doesn't know, she definitely can't know about Buck, considering everything, but it's like, yeah, Buck kind of brought this to your doorstep years and years ago. It was actually Emily that gave Cassie the idea about what maybe that she's missing something, because she knows, like, there's something more to this. She's just not sure what. And Emily said, like, right, she learned a lot about relationships, about people keeping stuff out of sentimentality. She's like, yeah, my mom kept all of her wedding dresses. So Cassie goes back, because I think for her, she was almost wondering, it's like, right, the fact is that he kept the one for Paige. He's like, she probably thought, like, maybe there was some sentimental elements to that. But which Sonny ended up happening to be there at the same time, but I guess she knew about that space under the floorboard. So she didn't leave. She probably wanted to see what Cassie was going to find first. So that's probably why she stayed. Because I'm thinking that's probably the same passageway Paige took to leave the cabin. But Cassie ended up finding files that he kept. Because I guess it's just, he kept files about like news reports about him and everything. About him killing his foster parents and stuff like that. Because I guess it's a kind of a sentimentality of like, yeah, these are terrible people, maybe a reminder of a terrible point in his life, but he also felt like he was doing something good because it's like, these were bad people, they did bad things to me and bad things to someone I cared about, and I guess he just couldn't let that go. I guess a reminder of where he was and where he is now. Which his whole situation complicates things for Cormac, because he knows something's up with his parents, but he doesn't want to outright betray them. It's like, right, these are my parents, but he knows something's up, but he's not fully bringing all his suspicions to Cassie. He can. He's processing and dealing with himself. And he found his mom at Dono and Tanya's place, which I love that Dono's handing out. He's like, here's your veggie burger. You know, here's your waste of time or something like that. I was like, come on, Dono, don't be mean. I guess for him, it's like, right, why have a veggie burger? We could actually have a burger or whatever. I guess it's like, we make such good burgers here, you're just asking for... Okay, like, that's what I thought. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. But Sunny shows up, and she, has her suspicions about Paige still being alive, and she brings that to Tanya and Dono. Because, they need... Well... For them, they're like, well, our job is over. Avery's kind of in the wind because he's most likely the one that took the pages from the journal. So it's like, well, what are we going to do? It's like, well, Luke is dead. Paige is potentially dead. So there's no one else that can kind of like read and understand and crack that code. So we need him. Well, we're kind of done with the job until this comes back and it's like, oh, Paige might be alive. Well, this might not be over for us. Because, I don't know if they're getting any payment after everything kind of fell apart. Because, their clients don't need them anymore because they got Avery, which I was like, oh, I was curious how that was going to go down. But it's like, oh, they recruited Avery. I'm sure they were probably threatening Avery. Avery's like, hey, I have the information. I can help you out. He's even saying like, hey, you should be thanking me. If it wasn't for me, the pages would be in the police lockup. It's like, no, it'd be in... Tanya and Dono's hands right now, but he's in this position where he's been for the past week or so. He's been trying to crack this. I think they said it had been a week that he's been trying to crack this. Maybe it's actually just been a couple of days. Been trying to crack this. The encryption to like the crypto and stuff like that. But it's like the guy's like, yeah. If you don't, it's going to be an issue for Carla and Emily, which he tries to him and Carla are in a position where, hey, we're trying to make things up. We're trying to make things right. So I need you to, hey, I rented out this Airbnb place, it's so great. We could go together, or you and Emily can go, then I eventually meet up with you. It's like, right, you're trying to get her out of town. But for her, it's like, I can't trust you after everything. This is gonna take as long as it needs to take because you lied to me. But it's like, right, can't actually tell you that my need to cover up my issues with the SEC, the embezzling situation that I'm dealing with, because once again, he didn't have to stick his neck in all of this, but in his mind he kind of did. He was trying to hide all this from Carla, plus he's trying, once again, I think the money he's getting from this, he wanted to get from this account, he was hoping would cover some of the losses in what the SEC is looking into. It's because apparently he's going to get at least it's not, I think the guy said $1 million as kind of a finder's fee for helping out with this whole situation, because obviously the money's theirs in the first place, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to cover the whole SEC situation, the money that was kind of embezzled or whatever, so we'll see about that. But it does, at the very end of the episode though, he does crack it, so he has access to it, so it's like, oh, that works out. Complicated part to all of this though is that Paige is back in the picture now because she shows up. Now, this can complicate things to high heaven in more ways than one. she could try and take advantage of this situation to try and take the money because, yes, he cracked it himself, but she has access to stuff too. If she gets her hands on it, it'll be easy to kind of get her hands back on that money. Granted, she's going to have to lay low because the people are going to, Luke's dead, so they can't do anything about it. She's no longer needed because Avery already cracked the code. But she could be the one to help free Walter because she could be like, oh, Walter didn't kill me. He actually helped me. That's what that was all about. Now, the question is she going to help Sunny free her son just for posterity's sake of like, hey, he actually helped me out and I do care about him? Or is this more like I'm going to use this to my advantage? I'm still not clear where things left off between them. Like, initially it's like, right, she was just using him, but I don't know if like at the very end, whether that was like last episode, whether her leaving, she was like sincere about like, wait, it's like, right, he did look after you, he did protect you, did get his hands dirty for you. But I don't know. I don't quite know what to make of that. So, but the fact that she shows up at Sunny right now makes me think like this is an opportunity situation. A lot of opportunists are popping up. Whether it's like her, because we don't know how her and Luke found their way into getting. Like I don't know if they worked for the guy that hired Dono and because the guy that hired Dono and Tanya isn't the boss. He's I think he represents the dude. I think he's kind of the fixer of whatever organization, because there's like someone higher up than him. I don't think he's the boss, but maybe I'm mistaken. Either way, yeah, because I think he's specific. No, because he said Ren recommended him, so I don't actually know if we know he's the boss. I could have sworn he said that he was kind of representing someone else, but maybe he is actually the boss. I don't remember. Ren recommended Tanya and Dono. That's what it was. I said it like he was recommended by Ren. It's like, no, he recommended Tanya and Dono. She recommended Tanya and Dono to him. Either way, so Tanya's going to be a bit of an interesting wild card next episode. So that's going to be interesting. Especially because I'm sure Paige knows that. It's like, right, I know the whole thing about Walter. And also, I think she knows about the fact is that Sunny's the one trying to cover stuff up about her disappearance and stuff. So there's that. There's the Cormac of it all, because he finally got the truth from his mom about everything, about who Walter is to him, who Walter actually is, what Walter did to his foster parents and stuff like that. And it's like, I've tried to protect him, but like he's being told by Buck, don't say anything. But for Cormac, it's like, it's because of you guys, because of your lies, because of you, there's been so much death, It's like, yeah, this is all on them. I mean, in more ways than one. It's like a direct correlation, because at least one person is dead because of Buck. Once again, I do believe there's a lot more. And Sunny's lies have led to so much chaos, because once again, a lot of this ended up like, it wasn't a simple like cover up, because there were so many other parts at play here that she wasn't aware of. So it wasn't just a simple cover up. Everything had consequences. There were domino effects from the decisions that they made. So that's the interesting aspect to it all. So it's definitely going to be really interesting to ultimately see how all of this plays out in the end, because I'm not sure if Cormac's going to do what he needs to, because it's like, right, this is throwing his family under the bus, now finding out he has a brother, that this brother might also be a killer. So does he tell Cassie the truth? Does he break things off of Cassie? Because like, yeah, they're kind of in a complicated spot, and Cassie was already beating herself up because she's like, right, she can't turn that side of her brain off, because she's like, right, there's still so many questions, and she just couldn't let it go in that moment. And especially knowing how much this kind of affects Cormac, it's like, right, they were having a good time, but she can't turn that side of her brain off. I mean, and that's always been one of her strong characteristics, because she won't let stuff go. I mean, that's how Rick got caught in the first place, because she had a gut feeling like there's something here, and her gut feelings always turn out to be right. So it's definitely going to, like I said, be interesting to see what happens next. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.